Okay, we're doing this again. This time, try not to freak out when I click. Hey? 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 Is this gonna make my voice small? Better not. If it does, I'm gonna be very cross. Alright? We're not doing this. Here, let's zoom ahead. See how small you made my voice, you freaking idiot? Okay. Ready? We are opening up the file. 3, 2, 1, mark. Now, are you gonna make my voice tiny? Good, don't. Alright, ready? Let's zoom in and go on Firefox. There we go. Hello, my name is Spencer. I'm a high school student from Freestyle Academy in California. I did a project very recently, or at least I tried to, before it went off the rails when my bag and most of my files were stolen whilst visiting England. So it goes. Today I'm here to talk about storytelling, which is something that is very controversial, and this will therefore be the worst. Today I'm here to talk about storytelling, which is something that is very controversial, and therefore this will be the worst out of my 3 slideshows that I have available. Let's get started. Storytelling. Storytelling is fun. Crucial. Storytelling is very important when you're wanting to tell a long-term story. What is storytelling? Well, if you're good at English, you will understand that storytelling is a portmanteau of the word story and telling. Story being a story or a tale, perhaps, of some events that happened, and telling be the action to say. I am telling. I tell. He tells, she tells, they tell, y'all tell, so on and so forth. I should not have to explain this further. Storytelling is important because it is the best way to communicate ideas and cultures to other human beings. One of the oldest ways that stories were shared was by oral storytelling, and traveling bards, basically. That was how culture got around. That was how people began to identify with each other by, the telling of stories. It's a powerful way to connect with other people. There's a lot of scientific evidence to back this up. There's a relevant article that I put on my slideshow, and I'm not going to click on, so I guess I'll link it if I ever upload this to YouTube or anything like that. But basically, the gist of it is that storytelling is good for basically putting knowledge into other people's brains. For example, if I wanted to teach math, I would tell a story about, how Pythagoras would, do the x squared plus b squared equals. And that would be, if I could think that metaphor through, that would be the most effective way to get that information into a beautiful little child's brain. I can't think of a third reason. I shouldn't have to give you 3 reasons to tell you why storytelling is important, because in this slideshow, the context is that you are trying to write a story, and you don't need 3 reasons to tell you why storytelling is important. Storytelling is the best way to communicate ideas to other people. It is a powerful way to connect with people, and I can't think of a third reason. I use storytelling very interestingly in my project. There's a book by a man called Blake Snyder, who passed fairly recently, I believe, may he rest in peace, called Save the Cat, which is incredibly controversial. I will not reveal my position on that book, because then half of the audience will hate me, and the other half will respectfully disagree with me. And the gist of Save the Cat is called the last book on screenwriting that you will ever need. I'm here to tell you that that is not true. Regardless of whether or not I think Save the Cat is a good book or a bad book, it's just not the case. And Blake Snyder says some things that are very, very wrong. Save the Cat might be a good book on movie screenwriting, but in my particular case, I was writing a 24-episode long series about pirates sailing around and having a good time. And while that is not exactly a very long form of storytelling, it's definitely more time than movies. It's probably like 3 movies put together or something ridiculous like that. Except for that each one of them is their own self-contained narrative that doesn't need to be tied together. It does. Whatever. You get my point. I'm not writing a movie here. I am just writing like a large amount of TV episodes. And one thing, basically the titular thing in Save the Cat is Save the Cat, which is something that is not done in a lot of very popular TV shows. And it's very good proof that Blake Snyder is not all correct, even if you do think that his book is great. For example, in the show Breaking Bad, the main character basically friggin' kills a kid, and, you know why he does it, and you still like him. In the show The Walking Dead, one of the main characters walks out of a hospital and friggin' murders a child, who's a zombie, and you don't feel, you still like him. And this is because you're given a lot more time to sort of adjust and learn that character, understand his motivations, and so on and so forth. My friend Colin wrote a screenplay a little while ago, and one of his characters, basically the main character, murdered a baby zombie by setting it on fire, and then everybody in the class hated his main character from that point forward, which was a really big shame because it was a great story, aside from all that. The fact of the matter is, in a movie, in an 18 minute long short film, you're not going to have enough time to come back from killing the cat, but when you're doing a story that's as long as The Walking Dead or Breaking Bad, you probably will. And your character can get away with killing cats left, right, and center. This brings up something that's very important. If you've ever read The Hero with 1,000 Faces or something like that, or any things like that, which if you're writing a story you really ought to have, you will know about the hero's journey, which is basically a big old clock that says, it starts here, call to adventure, you get, supernatural aid, you cross into the different world, you find a helper, a mentor, you go through challenges, you have the abyss moment, transformation, atonement, gift of the goddess, everything is the same but different. And in the case of trying to write a 24 episode long story, this is not what you want to use. You probably want to, if you're going to use anything similar, so like in shows like Naruto, which is a super long form thing, and Breaking Bad, which is also really long form, it's the kind of storytelling that you can do in like small bursts here and there, but that's not how the entire thing is going to pan out, and it's not how most people are going to see it. So you're probably going to want to stretch it out, something like this. This is a horribly done thing. But the fact of the matter is that there's like a really strange formula that I've come across while researching the writing for this project that I've been doing, that I can prove in there's just another formula, and I'll prove it later. But right now I want to explain what it is, so if anybody wants to do something similar, which you should because it's awesome, just so long your stuff doesn't get stolen. I'm crying on the inside, don't worry. There's another formula that you might be able to follow and follow well. Basically, you have the introduction episodes, the small sitcom, Stuff Gets Bad, angry sitcom, and ending episodes. And right beneath, this is a general guideline on what percent of your show should be that if you want to do a medium form storytelling thing. Again, I feel the need to reiterate, this isn't short form storytelling like a movie or a book. This isn't long form like Naruto or Breaking Bad. This is medium form like some of the shows that I'm about to bring up. So about 10 to 28% of your episodes should be introduction. 28 to 42 should be a small sitcom. 7% to 22% should be Stuff Getting Bad. 12 to 23% should be angry, and 7 to 11% should be the ending episodes. Which is, so I'll explain all these in a sort of a better way right now. The introduction episodes are sort of the episodes that, you get a lot of exposition. Not necessarily a lot of exposition, but you get exposition. You learn who the main characters are. You sort of learn the world that they're going to be in. You learn sort of the background and the premise of the show from the introduction episodes. You get introduced to a lot of the symbolism that'll be used later. You sort of get, a little bit of a dose of what the show will be about for these episodes. From that point on, it gets into sort of a small sitcom. The order that you watch these episodes, it should matter, but only because you have small hints about what's going to happen in the other episodes. Basically, the major plots of these episodes can be interchangeable with each other. So, for my show, I was going to have something with, a character who is going to be experiencing a little bit of personal growth as he manages to confront his bullies, which was the entire thing was just a spoof on like 80s movies that I grew up loving. So don't worry, it's not nearly as cliched. But that plot could just as easily be exchangeable for a plot where I explore the backstory of a character called Redman. And it should be fine just so long that both of these episodes are in. And you could be able to watch these episodes interchangeably if it weren't for me doing a little bit of foreshadowing in between with some small parts where I'm like, the bad guys are all like prepping up and they're like, oh yes, in a few more episodes we will unleash our final weapon, and so on and so forth. So that's what the small sitcom episode should be. Mostly interchangeable, but with a slight thread that ties them all together, and so you still get benefit out of watching them in order. And small sitcom gives you a lot of opportunity to get to know the characters, you get to know the world a little bit better, you start to like these people, so that when stuff gets bad, it's a lot more meaningful. So like, you maybe for my show, you'd get to know sort of the background characters a little more. You get to know the ship's captain a little more. You get to know sort of the main characters and the impact that they have on each other's lives and the way that this new life development is taking them. Stuff gets bad. This is a very small portion of the show where basically there is a tone shift, and within these few episodes, you need to have the tone shift like ready. So try not to make it too sudden. A lot of shows do that, and it's all right. But at the same time, it can be a little bit jarring for the viewers. For my show in particular, I foreshadowed the tone shift in this small sitcom episode, where basically I was like, oh yeah, by the way, some of your parents are murdered, and that gave me a little bit of a chance to push some character arcs in a direction that I was more comfortable with. It gave me a chance to sort of like say, hey, by the way, some psychological trauma stuff might be coming up, so if you're not comfortable with this, maybe you should sort of phase out. And if you are comfortable with this, then hold on to your pants, because they're about to get shot off by what's about to happen. So the stuff gets bad. That is basically a portion of the show where stuff starts getting bad. In my show, it meant the death of a major character. It meant suddenly the whole situation was changed. It meant that they were like on the run, and it was just a big sort of large amount of events that all coincided by the end of the small sitcom to make the next part of the show happen that we were all sort of familiar with. Next up is the angry sitcom. So this is another portion of the show where you get to explore the world and the characters, but this would be more of a darker side. These characters are always going to be at each other's throats and at their own throats, and you get to sort of explore who they would be, or who they are going to be once this whole ordeal is over, and they sort of begin to torment themselves mentally as well as each other. In my show, this meant, some of the characters coping with the way that things were going, some of the characters beginning to doubt their abilities in general, some of the characters, like they would freak out, or they weren't sure if they were really cut out for all this, or they would try to run away, and all that stuff where, you have to break them. You have to absolutely take the people that you love and just crush them so that when things finally do turn around for them, it's that much more meaningful. I call it the angry sitcom because the episodes, again, don't really have to be about anything in particular. They should not be interchangeable for the most part, because there are still going to be some developments that happen, but it does somewhat take the format of maybe a few serialized episodes in a sitcom where all of a sudden, a new cousin is coming to visit and whatever. But this is a portion where the characters are undergoing some very serious development, and they need a little bit of time and space to sort of figure out who they are and who they're going to be. A little room to breathe in between the big episodes where stuff gets bad and the ending episodes. The ending episodes are the last few episodes. It's kind of running the gauntlet, where basically your characters have prepared enough, they're geared up, they're ready for action, and this is the part where they take on the big bad evil guys, and so on and so forth. Stuff starts to get out of hand, it goes out of hand, and once it's finished being out of hand, you take an episode or two to sort of wrap things up, end up the loose threads, and make sure that your ending is significantly happy or significantly unhappy, depending on what kind of story you're going for. These episodes are mostly done, basically, usually there are some kinds of physical fights as well as emotional fights. There might be some abyss moments, there might be some pit of despair moments where your characters are, they don't know who they are, they're totally lost, they're about to lose the battle. When suddenly the music goes through, it's like, don't lose your way! And then everybody's like, oh my god, this is who I am, this is who I'm supposed to be. They have a major epiphany, a major breakthrough, and they've changed for the better. And then this new version of themselves is explored through the ending episodes as we wrap up, what the story was all about. So that is basically the rundown of the formula. Now I'm going to talk about some shows that use the formula, and in addition to mine, and how I sort of took it from theirs. So the first show that basically taught me this formula was Neon Genesis Evangelion. Which was a great show by Studio Gainax. It was released in the 90s. I like to call it Grandpa Gundam because it was basically a giant robot show that was inspired by a lot of other giant robot shows and forever changed the genre of giant robot shows. This is the show where Asuka Langley, who I mentioned earlier in another video, comes from. As you can see in these characters, they have it's just a very emotional show about trauma and people trying to relate to each other, and so you get a lot of character development in these things. And in the first few episodes, you get introduction to the world, and it does follow the formula very well. The first several episodes are about introduction. Then once Asuka is introduced, you kind of get or a little bit even before Asuka gets introduced, you get into sort of a groove of things. You start to learn, oh, this is the routine. Stuff gets bad, and then, the ending episodes is like a whole mess of confusion, and they ran out of funding, and they made a movie for it. But Eva made this formula, basically, and they did really well with it. So Eva, I think, is 26 episodes and one movie. And they managed to make the formula work very, very well for themselves, and that's basically where I figured it out from. Another show which stuck to the formula very well, Kill la Kill, which in my opinion it was the one that made it the most obvious for me and helped define it the most solidly. Where at the beginning, you have these introductory episodes. Matoi Ryuko shows up in the town eating a lemon. We're introduced to her as like a total badass who's on a quest to find out who killed her father. And then eventually we get these episodes where she's fitting in the city with Mako. We get like a massive twist where all of a sudden everything is taken over. We get sort of a few angry episodes where she's running around trying to get the pieces of Kamui Senketsu, and as well as there's just a bunch of other stuff that happens, the whole Nudisto Beach thing. Kill la Kill exemplifies this. It does it very, very well. And it's not like a mark on Kill la Kill because it is genuinely one of my favorite shows. And it manages to have this formula like down diggity. The next show that I'm going to talk about is Gravity Falls, which is an American show. Finally, we're talking about America, the best country in the world, which sort of screws with this formula a little bit. The previous two shows, Kill la Kill and Grandpa Gundam, are both 26 odd episodes long. Whereas Gravity Falls is 40 episodes long, and it screws the formula a little bit. There are some episodes that are like out of order, where you have, it's 2 seasons, each with 20 episodes, and some of the angry sitcom episodes are sort of, some of the sitcom episodes are sort of mixed in with some of the stuff getting bad episodes, and it's a really great. Gravity Falls is borderline perfect. If you haven't seen Gravity Falls, please watch Gravity Falls, because it is so good. The humor is magnificent. The animation is great. It's probably the best thing to come out of Disney since High School Musical 2, and I am not exaggerating when I say that. And anybody who... Okay, I'll drop that joke. Gravity Falls is really well done. They managed to make all of the formula work very well, and I have so much respect for anybody who worked on this show. Conclusion. Storytelling is super, super important. I'm glad that I got to talk about it. When you're making a medium form show, you probably should follow that formula, because that's just something that I've noticed, and I'm probably not the first person to notice it. Although if you think that you have things better, then who am I to judge, because I couldn't even get my project off of the ground. I wish you very much well if you ever try to make a project like this. I wish you better luck than what I had, and I thank you very much for watching all 20 minutes of this. So thank you very much. I've been Spencer, and you have been really, really kind and supportive. Thank you. Again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna stop the video now. Thank you.